Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast with your hosts George Tsunias
and Maria Petrakou. Now today's episode is dedicated to many of our followers who we know love to trek and go on a bit of an adventure. So here we are once again to inspire your vacation to the Greek islands and beyond, and let you know about some destinations that offer some epic hiking routes and trails.
I think epic is the word because I am definitely one of those adventure junkies and trying to bring you along, Maria, since we've met on some of the adventures, and always trying to push you on some random adventure when we go to Greece. So she is the one that enjoys it after all, especially when it's accompanied by some epic views, but also some good music that I like to play. So anyway, before we get those hiking shoes out, if you're not following us on Instagram, make sure you head over and hit that button, the follow button that is, on the My Greek Island Instagram handle at My Greek Island.
And if you enjoy this podcast, head over to the podcast platform of your choice and give us a rating or a little review. It helps us come back with more content and maybe even share it with your friends. You know, just share it with one person. It makes such a huge difference.
So I think without further ado, let's get our hiking shoes on and get into today's episode.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the My Greek Island podcast, dedicated to take you, the wanderlust, on a journey through Greece.
There are 227 inhabited Greek islands. Which one will you visit next?
My Greek Island with your hosts George and Maria.
Right, so today, as we did we've said in the intro, it's all about hiking trails in Greece. I am very excited.
I'm sure you are. And I'm worried that he's going to start asking me when we're going to go on all of these routes. We've been on one, so I'm sort of bracing myself. But as always, got you covered. As in addition to the routes, we will mention on this episode that I've also written a blog post with a few more than what we're going to mention today that may be of interest. So make sure to head over to the My Greek Island website to read more about the routes we're going to discuss, and also some other ones that we're not going to talk about on this episode.
Yeah, and as I'm sure there will be some of our My Greek Island listeners that are thinking, oh, I've been on a hike and this route has not been mentioned. And if we don't mention it, make sure you get in touch, let us know. And who knows, we might just add it to our schedule for a future episode based on your recommendations. And maybe, if the views are good enough, we might put it on our bucket list.
Exactly. So, as always, we love to listen from you. So don't be shy. Get in touch on Instagram, email, or even on the website chat box.
So, are you ready, Maria?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Let's. Right. So before we kick in though, and we start these trails, we just want to have a bit of a caveat. So clearly many of you are going to be visiting some of these destinations during the summer months. So we just want to make sure that you bear in mind the weather circumstances, especially since at the time of recording of this episode, Greece is going through, and probably most of Europe, through a bit of a heat wave. So bear that in mind, talk to the locals. Some of the routes we will be mentioning are on islands, and they do tend, even when there's not heat waves, to start a bit earlier, start quite early, so that you're not literally in the midday heat, which in Greece can be quite hot. So please bear that in mind. Right, George?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a really good tip here, and something we would probably do on some of these, is make sure to ask a local, so they will tell you of their kind of local experience. And another thing, never underestimate how much water you need. Be prepared. And another thing that we just mentioned before we go on to our first trek is we're going to talk about some treks that we think are really good to do. And obviously your experiences will differ in terms of your trekking experience. So make sure you check out a bit more what these routes are like and be wearing the appropriate clothing and take the appropriate equipment. So should we go into our first one, which is on your favorite island? Well, your favorite area of Greece, as we know as the Get to Know Us episode, and I won't forget now. So the first trek is the Samaria Gorge, which is in Crete.
Exactly.
And a very popular island.
It is. And there's a reason why it's so popular. So if you've not been, and when you do head there, you'll probably understand why it's so popular. So yes, this trek is located on the island of Crete, specifically in the region of Chania, which and is in the White Mountains National Park, which in Greek is referred to as, the White Mountains are referred to as Lefkada. The most photographed spot of this route is Sideroportes, which literally translates into iron gates, where the gorge walls rise to 500 meters high. It's actually, if you Google it, you will see loads of pictures from this specific spot. The route takes about 6 hours. It is downhill, so you start at the top of the hill and you go down, and you will not return back up. You will find, you will probably go back via a boat and then bus if you have a bus to your initial spot, or a bus straight into the town of Chania if you didn't arrive initially by car. And you end up at a beach called Ayaroumeli. So if you've listened to our Carlos episode, you will have heard this before, because there's a port in Ayaroumeli which you can get a boat and go to the island of Karpathos. Now, got a surprise. There is an ebook that I wrote on the website which has a 7-day proposed itinerary for Chania. And within this itinerary, one of the days is to trek the Samaria Gorge. So lots of information in that ebook if you want to have a look. But also there are blog posts on the My Greek Island website about Chania, and 2 podcast episodes specifically dedicated to the region if you want to learn more, and if you do want to head and do this trek, but also combine it with having a bit of a holiday in the region.
I mean, I'm really surprised that to say Chania is like your favorite area, you've never done this. I mean, I've only been to Crete once, and next time I'm going, there is no way I'm not doing this trek, because the pictures look amazing.
They do. The problem is that every single time, and I've been so many times to Chania, I think I've lost count. Every time I'd be like, can we go trek? Can we go do the trek? And everyone was like, no. And I don't think, I think I wasn't confident enough to just go and do it myself. Yeah. Whereas now, well, now I've got you, but if I didn't have you, I'd probably do it myself.
Yeah.
But I think the last time I was there, I was with a cousin of mine, and I said to her, can we just go and trek the gorge? I said to her, there's an amazing beach bar at the end, and we can, have a beer and have a nice dip. And she said, I will go straight to the beach bar and wait for you.
6 hours is not just a stroll in the park, but I think it's worth it.
It is, and it's downhill, so it shouldn't be. It's just a long route. I don't think it's of difficulty in comparison to other routes, because you're not going to come back up. You're only going down. But it's supposed to be some epic views, and everyone who I know has been there always talks about the moment you finish it, everyone just dives into the sea. That it's just such. It's just so. The feeling of just jumping into the sea after you've finished. Well,
because you're probably ready to self-combust from the heat if you're there in the summer. And I guess in the winter or out of season will be much more peaceful, but not as many people are going to be there out of season. So unless you want to go off season to Crete, which would probably be quite nice anyway. Should we go to? And
it's quite high up, so it might be cold as well in the winter. Yeah. Anyway, yes, let's move on to the next one. which we together have done. So
We
next
have.
up is the trek to the ancient village of Vrukunda. So George, give us some details on that.
Yes, so Vrukunda is located on one of our other much loved islands of Karpathos, which we have a dedicated episode to. And actually, this trek, if I'm not mistaken, if memory doesn't fail me, I think I was just looking on Google Maps and like zooming in on what would look good. And I was like, let's go there. And then we decided to trek it. Is that how we came across it? Because I don't think we asked a local.
We were heading, and we decided why we were there. We were heading to Olympos, and you were just playing around with the Google map, and you were like, let's go here.
Yeah.
And we started reading the reviews,
Yeah.
and I think we were just like, okay, 3 liters of water, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we did it.
And we had enough water. So, yeah, chances are, if you're going to go to Vrukunda, it's in the northernmost part of the island, you're probably going to be combining it with Olympos, which is the iconic village. And that's where you can drive to the village of Avlona, which is close to Olympos, and that's where you leave your car. It's a 2,000-year-old path, and it's quite clearly marked. It's easy to find, to be fair. The route lasts, I would say, about 3 hours, but I would recommend a good 5+ hours. We were quite rushed. We literally got down.
But that's to go and come. That's not just to go. That's to go and come.
Yeah. But I mean, we took around that time. But I think you'd need a good 5 hours plus to like explore the area, because we literally went down and had to rush back up. So I think I would personally want to spend more time. I think there was, if you walked around a bit, there was like a sea that you could probably go swimming in if you could get down to. So it's probably worth more than just trekking down and trekking back up, because we were quite rushed, weren't we?
But we were, because we wanted to see the sunset from Olympos, which should not be missed. And I mean, it was very hot that day, so we wanted to do it in the afternoon. I think probably the best thing would have been for us to have done it in the morning.
Yes, agreed.
Come back, chilled, and then possibly went to see the sunset. But we did it in the afternoon, so effectively we should have started the route about an hour to an hour and a half earlier.
Yeah.
So that we could have a bit of time to explore and then head back in time to see the sunset from Olympos, which is not to be missed. But we did at least get to see the cave in the church in the cave, which was epic, which I think you're going to talk about anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things to note here is that it's downhill on the way there and uphill on the way back, and you can see where the end is, and it doesn't look that far, but it does take a long time. So that's why it's good to kind of time it, because if you are in Olympos for just one night, you cannot miss the sunset. So you have to plan your day basically. So to get enough time, and the last thing we wanted was to miss the sunset, so we really had to pace it back up. But basically, the story behind the ancient city is an earthquake destroyed the coastal town of Vrukunda, and that's when Olympos, which you're most likely to be going, it was founded. And in Vrukunda, the scenery is epic. When we went, we were basically in peak season. It was end of August, start of September, and we saw 1 or 2 people. There was hardly anyone that we saw. We encountered some animals, but I think maybe we saw 1 or 2 people. It was very, very quiet, so it's definitely off the beaten track. However, there is a yearly festival, so we know that we just missed it, and it gets very, very busy. And there's boats that take people there, or people actually trek down to get to that, which is quite a long way. And as Maria mentioned earlier, there is a cave and there's a church. Oaianis Vroukonditis, I think that's how you would pronounce it. So you can go into that little church. It's quite spooky, but it's 100% worth it if you're in that area of the island. I would go out of my way to go there again. As we took around 3 liters, but make sure you have enough water. I don't think you can take enough water, and we do have a dedicated episode. If you are going to Karpathos, generally you can learn all about Karpathos, this little trek going to Olympos, and all in all,
and there's
was great.
also It was great. And also there is a dedicated blog post on the My Greek Island website with some more details about Karpathos in addition to the podcast episode. So check that out as well.
Yes. So I think that's it for Vurgunda. Really, it was our kind of first ever encounter with a trek, really, I would say. What we could call a trek.
Was it? Oh, we didn't do any in Githira,
No,
you're
we
right.
didn't.
So you're right. That was our first epic trek. And then after that, I think there were more to follow. But I would also say head over to the My Greek Island Instagram page and check the highlights that are saved with some stories from Karpathos, because we did cover it during the trek, and there's a few funny, I guess,
there's lots of
moments
goats,
between me and George.
lots of goats. Not many people,
Yeah.
but lots of goats. So they were so cute. So next up, I think we're going to go to Santorini, which is known by most people, and it's the Ia Trail.
Exactly. So Fira to Ia. So starting from the village of Fira, which is the capital of Santorini, and heading towards the very well-known part of Santorini called Ia, which is on the tip and is known for the epic sunsets. There are many trails on the island of Santorini, something that many people are not aware of, and this trail is one of the most famous and well-known hiking trails on the island. I've done a few. This is not one that I have done. I've done some more off the beaten track trails in Santorini, which are also worth it. But of course, this one, I've done bits and bobs of it by myself. But at some point, I do want to do it at sunrise. Now, why do I say that? Because not just the sunsets in Santorini are epic, the sunrises are also, and it's quieter, it's more peaceful, it's not as hot. So it's definitely a great time to do it. The route lasts approximately 3 hours. On the way, you have astonishing views of the caldera, and the trail is quite high up, so it's a very magnificent view to see on the way there. En route, you will pass what is known as Skaros, which is a fortress topped. There's a rock just off. It's like a little island coming off Santorini, and if you have time, it's also worth climbing up Skaros Rock, where you can get amazing views of Fira. And then on the way, eventually, you will see some of the epic pictures, the most well-known pictures that you know of Santorini, which effectively are, the white and blue churches, and at the end, you will reach a very beautiful village, which is called Ia, most famous village in Santorini, where everything, of course, it's sort of man-made. Ia is kind of man-made, but it is very beautiful to the eye. And then I guess just to top it up, if you want to learn more about Santorini in general, there are more than one podcast episode about it. So check them out. And also more than one blog post. I think there's 2 to 3 blog posts on the website. So check them out as well.
And also you'll get one of the top tips, which if I recall, because I haven't been to Santorini, is the best sunset is not actually where everyone goes, isn't it? You can go to an island opposite. Is that correct?
So I don't know what you're referring to, but you have multiple ways of seeing the sunset in Santorini. The most popular spot is in Ia. You can get a great sunset on the entire opposite side of the island, which is called Akrotiri, where there is a lighthouse. Many people tend to do sunset cruises with catamarans. Personally, I'm not a huge fan because you're literally on an overcrowded boat to see the sunset, and you can see it from the opposite side of the island. But in general, there's multiple places to see the sunset. If you're up for like a sunset cruise, people say it's a nice experience. It's just not my cup of tea. But yes, on the island opposite, you can also get great sunsets. In general, there's a whole region you can get great sunsets. But I don't think that they're better sunsets. Maybe just less people.
Less people, yeah, that's what I meant. It's like less crowded, because I've seen like people take sunset pictures in Santorini and then they scan back and there's like thousands of people there at the same time. That's what I meant. Maybe not better, but like there's like more off the beaten track, potentially.
In general, I'm not sure that Santorini or anywhere near Santorini can be considered off the beaten track anymore. It's such a popular island, it gets overcrowded. The one thing I would say about Santorini is to try and go adjacent to the peak months in order to get less crowds. Also, Santorini is an island where you can enjoy many things other than the sea. In comparison to other islands, there's many things to do. You've got the wineries, you've got the hiking trails, you have the villages, the gastronomic experience, the views, the sunsets. So I personally prefer to go after peak season, like mid to end of September, October, where the temperatures are not as hot, so you can walk around more comfortably. You can experience some of the other things the island has to offer without being in that excessive Greek heat, and also experience a sunset and, drive around the island without being in an area which is at peak season with so many people, and you can enjoy it more. Mm-hmm. But anyway, let's move on to the next one. So next up is the Vikos Gorge.
Yep. And I think this one, anyone that is going to that is going to be really dedicated hiker, I think, because it's located in mainland Greece in Zagori in the Epirus region, which is it is in the middle of Greece, basically. So you're not on an island, although it can be combined with the more seaside destination. And it's one of the reasons it goes quite unnoticed. But I think those that are looking to do some hiking or trekking will probably spot it. It has some of the most beautiful landscapes in the country. And it's an area where there is some of the water that's supplied. You might see that. And one thing to bear in mind with water, so you might correct me here, but there is a law that most bottles of water in most places that is capped at like 50 cents for the half a litre, but there's always ways that they get around it. But in the kiosks and in the supermarkets and stuff, it's kind of capped at 50 cents.
I'd say in most places in Greece, if you buy a bottle of water, a half litre bottle of water, it is capped at 50 cents.
Yeah.
But there will be places where you find that aren't. I don't know how they do that, but in most places you will find out. There's a few products which in Greece were considered essential. I'm translating from Greek in my head now, but like essential use.
They're like essential products, aren't they?
Essential products, so like bread, milk, water. They even had like a cap on cigarettes at some point. Like there were stickers on it, you couldn't sell them, which is not an essential. But there were certain products which you were not allowed to sell at a higher price. Yeah. Three of them, which I remember were essential products, was milk, bread, and water, which you were not allowed to sell for more than a certain price that was set by the government.
Yeah.
And water, although you can get cheaper water in the supermarket, but if you were to buy it from anywhere else, at a restaurant, at a kiosk, at the beach, etc., in theory, you should not be paying more than 50 cents.
Yeah. And another one a friend told me recently, because he goes on boats quite a lot, is that apparently the toasted sandwich is capped as well, which is really random.
I didn't know that, but possibly.
Yeah, it's just like a specific, just like the plain toasted sandwich. Anyway, we digress. So the Vikos Gorge runs through the Zagorochoria, which is villages. It's 12 kilometers long, 900 meters deep, and I think it would take you around 6 hours to complete. Obviously, caveat, as we said, if you're going in peak season, it's really hot. One of the warnings that comes with this, and if I were to do it, probably would go off season, is the route is uphill, so it's going to be a bit of a struggle. However, if you are holidaying and you're in the Ionian, this can be combined very well, because it can be combined with islands in the Ionian. So if you were there for a longer period of time and you would like to do something like this, so I think we've got episodes on Lefkada, which is an island that is an island, but it's joined to the mainland via a bridge, so you can cross that. Or also we've got episodes on Kefalonia, if you're in Kefalonia, which that'd be quite a nice adventure to do a bit of Kefalonia and then go on to the mainland, do a bit of hiking. That could be a bit of a vibe and mix it all up. So yeah, I think it's one for our list for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been to this area?
I've not, although I actually do have friends that have heritage from Zagorochoria, and I've always had it on my list to go, but I've just never got round to doing it. But I've always wanted to combine the Ionian with Zagorochoria and the route that we're going to talk about next.
Yes, and I think this area is also near Ioannina, which has a really nice lake, and you can actually fly to that from Athens. So yes, should we move on to the next one, which I think, we're nearly coming to the end. So what's our next one, which, again, I can't believe we haven't been there. My parents have been there, and they're like, you need to go. Meteora.
Meteora, yes. So Meteora, if you've not seen pictures, please Google it. Press pause on the podcast and Google it now. Meteora. So Meteora. It has some of the most epic and dramatic scenery in all of Greece. And this is not an understatement. Formulated rocks, and on top of them, there's monasteries. So the monasteries are listed as UNESCO heritage. Meteora is located near the town of Kalampaka, and it's approximately a 4-hour drive from Athens, although it can be perfectly combined with Zagori that we mentioned previously, and also the Ionian if you want to, sort of do a bit of a road trip. So these monasteries sit at the top of these rock formations, which were created by a series of ancient earthquakes. You can trek around the area and you can visit, I think, 6 of the monasteries that are open to the public if you want. So yeah, I mean, George, we've said quite a few times that we're going to go, and we've just never gotten around to it.
Yeah.
But I think it's
absolutely
time. We need
stunning.
to do it.
I mean, I'm going to expose myself here, but when I used to live in Chalkidiki in the north of Greece, where it's like the 3 peninsula right in the north near Thessaloniki, there was tourists that would take a day trip from there. I think the day trip would used to leave at like 4 a.m. and come back at 10 p.m. So people were like, it was a really, really popular tourist sort of excursion. I can't believe I've never been, but definitely maybe we should do a road trip in the winter and visit all these places that we don't do in the summer.
So I wouldn't want to do it in the winter. I'd want to do it during like summer, beginning or end of summer, to be honest with you. Because in the winter it's quite high up, so it gets cold, and I'm not.
Yeah, you're not. I just feel like it
operates well in the cold.
You'd have snow in the background. I don't know. It's not on the actual bit, but generally. But yeah, it's definitely one to visit.
Yes. So last up, let's do the last one. Probably one of the most famous things as well in Greece, which I'm sure that those that are interested in hikes, treks, climbing, etc., are very aware of. But let's talk about Mount Olympus.
Oh yes, I mean, in the past year, it was on my bucket list for 2023 to climb Mount Olympus, and life has got in the way, and that's not happening. But I'm still trying to convince you to do it. You did commit to it for next year, didn't you?
I said I'd think about it.
Are you still thinking about it?
You were literally just like flooding my inbox with information about Mount Olympus and climbing it, and I was even scared to Google the images.
You need to do like a mini one first, because it's around 3,000 meters high, so it's very, very high. World-renowned, world-famous Mount Olympus is situated between Macedonia and Thessalia, and it is the highest mountain in Greece, and it is also considered, for those of you that like Greek mythology, it's considered as the home of the 12 gods. So it's a mythical mountain. Amazing scenery. There's obviously wild animals, plants, natural waterfalls, natural springs. A normal climb usually takes between 2 to 3 days. Now, I'm not sure what happens in like peak August time. I'm not sure. I mean, we would recommend going with an organized group, because 3,000 meters is not for the faint-hearted.
And I'm not even sure you can do it alone. Yeah,
I mean, if you were like a proper hiker, I'm not sure, but I would definitely not do it without a group, because the last part of it, if you look at it, it's very, very steep and very dangerous. So, you would need to really do your research, look who's out there. And I mean, we've got someone that we would potentially like to have on the podcast to talk about hiking in Greece. So hopefully in the autumn we can get them on the podcast, maybe.
Yes.
And so yeah, there's a 2 to 3 day trek. There's options because I've been researching, and price-wise, it's not that expensive. And definitely something you can do. You can get to it from Thessaloniki or from Athens. Probably need to hire a car. And yeah, it's definitely one that I'm going to do. It's not one I would like to do. It's one I am going to do. With or without Maria. Hopefully by the time it comes around, she'll be like, yep, I'm here. I'm going. If not, it'll be a solo. I'm going solo. Although I've got a friend who also probably would do it with me. So that would be good. So yeah, we did not leave Mount Olympus.
You're selling me out, hun.
Huh?
You're selling me for someone else.
Well, no, if you come along, then it'll be 3 of us.
Okay,
so
let's do it.
I think that's a wrap for the hikes in Greece. We've done 1 out of the 4. Wait, 4 or 5 did we talk about? 1. Yeah, 5.
There's 5 on
1 out of the 5. So
we've done 1. We were planning on doing the second, but that sort of went downhill this year. But anyway, we will do it soon. But yeah, I think this sums up the My Greek Island recommended top hiking trails in Greece. Of course, for more information on these routes and also some more difficult routes that exist in Greece, please check the My Greek Island website and the relevant blog post. And if any of you actually attempt any of these trails, let us know how you found them, and remember to tag us so we can share your favorite things about it and share the love with the My Greek Island community. But before we go,
it's a part of the podcast, but we're going to share you a Greek word of the episode. And I think our Greek Islanders need to put one of these routes on their bucket list if they are in the vicinity, or if they're planning to go and they're like, oh, I could do a little trek. But I think we were going to use, should we go with a word that's relevant to today's episode?
Let's.
So in the spirit of the episode, as we've got our hiking shoes on, we're going to give you the word for hiking, which is Ορειβασία.
Ορειβασία.
Πάμε για Ορειβασία.
Πάμε. Amazing. Right, my Greek Islanders, I think this is a wrap. But before we go, just a quick reminder, because clearly you'll be taking water and snacks with you on these routes. But remember, leave nothing but your footprints.
That is so lovely to finish on that. Thank you for listening as always, and we will see you on our next episode.
Amazing. Yassas.
Yassas.
Right, my Greek Islanders, this comes to the end of another episode of this podcast.
Now you know the drill. If you like this episode, share it to share the love with the My Greek Island community, where everyone is welcome. And
don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and all that jazz. And maybe give us a little rating from wherever you're listening to us from, so you are notified every time a new episode drops. And if you have any suggestions or requests, get in touch.
And for those of you visiting Greece, don't forget to tag @MyGreekIsland on Instagram for a future feature. Until then, see you later, or as they say in Greek,
Ta leme.